Hi, in this video we're going to look at how to turn your microbit chip into a stopwatch. So the microbit chip has on board a clock. So the moment you power the chip up, it starts and it keeps track of the time. So the whole time it's running, it's keeping track of how much time has passed. But what we want to do is we want to be able to press a button and kind of start the timing then, and then press the button again or press a different button and it stops the time and we record how much time between the two button presses. That's the way a stopwatch works. So how do we do all of that? Well, it's going to get a little bit complex, and we're going to need three different variables. So let's go and set up our variables first. So you go down the menu here to where you get to variables and you're going to make a variable. I've already made one called running. So that's the first one that we're going to be using. The next one I'm going to be using is called start. So I'm going to create that one. And I'm going to create a third one, which is called time. So I now have three variables: running, start, and time. So the time that's running, when it starts, and the time between the two button presses. So how do we work all of this out? So first thing we're going to need to do is go and get our button A pressed. So we're going to press a button A to start it, and I'll just duplicate that code because we're going to press button B, obviously, to finish the timing. So what do we need to do on the start? Well, when you press button A, we've got to keep a record of whether the time is running or not. So we're going to go to the variables and we're going to go set running to, we're not going to go a number here. We're not going to set it to a number. This variable is not going to be set to a number. It's going to be set to true, or when you finish it, to false. So to do that, I need to go down to logic and I go and get my true here. Now it doesn't look, this has got sharp edges. It doesn't look as if it'll fit in here, but it does. So I've set running to true. In other words, the clock is running. When I press button B, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting it to false. Okay, so when I press button A, time is running, and when I press button B, it's not running anymore. I also need to set the start to the running time. So in the variable, I go set start, and then I go and get the running time. Now, running time is something which is on board the chip. So I go into input, I go down and I look for running time. I can't see it here, so I've got to click on more, and there we go, running time. So to microseconds, not the milliseconds. So it's running time. So it's now going to set running to true to tell you that the time is running, and it's going to set it to the start to whatever the running time is at that point. So if the chip is powered up and I go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and then I press A, at the start the running time is going to be 3 seconds. So that start is now going to be 3 seconds. So I know when the start is. Now for button B, I've got to go to what the running time then is. So when I finish, in other words, it keeps on running, the running time on the clock keeps on running. So I've got to change time to be running time at that point minus whatever it was at the start. So if it was 3 seconds here and it runs, the clock keeps running and it gets to 8 seconds by the time I press button B, then what's going to happen is it's going to minus 3 from 8, and it'll give me 5. So I was running for 5 seconds. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to do that, but I only want to do it if the button B is pressed. So I go and get my if true. So if true, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be changing the running time. So I go to my variables and I go change time by, and then I'm going to subtract start from the running time. So I need some subtraction. I go to maths and I go and get a subtraction box. So I'm going to take my running time, I'll just duplicate it from there, running time minus whatever the start was. Okay, so if it's true, then it's going to change the time by, when you press button B, if that's true, you press button B, then you take the running time, whatever that is on the clock, on the chip, and you minus the start. And that'll give you how long since you started, you clicked start there. Phew, that's quite complex. Now let's see if we can display that. So at the moment, you know, the program will work, but you won't see anything on the clock face, chip face, because I haven't put anything there. So I'm going to get a forever loop, a forever event. So forever, if it's running. So if the time is running, I want it to kind of give a little pulse maybe, so that I can see that something's going on. So I go to my if, and what I want to say is if running. Okay. If it's running, then I'm going to show, let's say, a heartbeat. Now, I won't see a difference if it's just showing a heart. So what I can do is go add another icon, and you've got a little mini heart. So it'll go boom, 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 like that. And it'll count that for the time if running. I could also put a musical note in, if you like. I could play middle C, just so that you get a sense of the beat. Otherwise, then when it comes to an end, if it's not running, then what we can do is we can just maybe show a sort of flat. It's finished. Okay, so let's test that and see if it works. So I'm going to press button A, boom, 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 and then I press button B, and it stops it. So I started it by pressing button A, finish it by pressing button B. Now, once I press button B, it should have recorded the time, whatever the running time is that keeps on going all the time on the chip, and whatever that running time, and minus taken away what the running time is when I pressed start. So I should now have a measure of how much time was between A and B, but I need to display that on the chip. So I'm going to use another input, and I've got on logo pressed, when you press the little badge at the top. If you've got a version 1 microbit, then you would put on press button A and B. But if you've got a version 2, you can go on logo pressed. So when I press it, and I only want to do this if it's not running, so I can put in here if, and then I go down to logic and I need a not. So if it's not running, okay, so I'm only going to be able to press the logo if I press button B and it's no longer running. Otherwise, it would get way too confusing. Then it's going to show that number, and it's going to show the time. I could put just the time in, but that's in MS. So I need to divide that by 1,000 to get what it is in seconds. So I'm going to go down to my maths again, and I can use the divide, but I think the one I'm going to use is on square root. You have available to you divide integer, so it gives whole numbers. So I'm going to take the time. Where's time? I don't have time there, so I must collect it here. Divide that time. Oops, hate it when that happens. Divide time by 1,000. Okay, so The time is running on the chip all the time. When I press button A, it sets running to true. That's a Boolean variable. In other words, running tells you whether the stopwatch is running or not, yes or no, true or false. So a Boolean variable there, it's setting running to true, and it sets start to the running time. If that's 100, then start will be 100. If that's been on for 100 seconds or whatever it is, then start will now become 100. When I press button B, it finds the difference between the running time, which now might be 110. It minuses the start, which might be 100, and it would be running for 10 seconds. If it's true, if you press button B, and it changes the running to false, so it's no longer running. Then forever, it listens out on the chip to see if running then. So if the stopwatch is running, if it's set to true, it'll do the beating heart bit. Otherwise, it'll just show a flat line. And when you press the logo, if it's not running, so if you press the logo in the middle of the stopwatch, it won't do anything. But only if it's not running, then it will show you what that time is, which is the difference between what the running time is when you end it and the start. Sure, let's test it. So I'm going to refresh there. Now it's running, so the chip face is running. It's got up to a certain running time. Now I press button A, and a certain amount of time is going to pass now. And when I press button B, it'll subtract what the running time is now, take away what the start was, and it should show it on the face when I press the badge at the top here. Let me get my mouse to capture it. There we go. And it'll show us 8 seconds. Wow, that's quite a stopwatch. That's been quite a lot of work there. See if you understand the reasoning behind it, why it's been done like this.